Hey there, welcome to the Retirement Answer Man Show. My name is Roger Whitney. I am your host. And this is the show dedicated to helping you not just survive retirement. Sometimes it feels like that might be all we get. No, we want you to rock retirement. And this month we are focused on how to deal with longevity and make it work for us, not against us. Now, before we dive into the show, I want to take a moment because Nicole shared something with me recently that I didn't realize. And that is, over the last 12 months, the people hanging out here with you and I every week, the listener has more than doubled. This show has grown considerably, which is pretty cool. More people we have along, the more wisdom we get to share. So if you are new here, I want to welcome you. I'm glad you're hanging out with us. If you are not so new, great to have you here. So if you are new, I thought I would sort of give you the lay of the land, because we have a snappy show typically, and we don't always pause to welcome you in and have you understand what's going on here. So I want to first tell you about what a normal listener is to the Retirement Answer Man Show. And this is based off of surveys we've done over the last 5 years, conversations I've had with hundreds of people just like you. And so I want to give you a little profile. Generally, they're over 50, pretty smart, intentional about decision making. They're focused more on family and outcomes than they are all the fancy dancy gadgets of investing in the world. They want to be good stewards, not just of their money, but of their life. And to a T, they're all very helpful and giving. And they're either within 5 years of facing a major life change, which we call retirement, or they're living in retirement and they're figuring it out. And they want time freedom. And first, or last, but definitely not least, you're all really nice. So that's a normal listener here. I bet you that fits you too. So if you're listening to the show, I want to give you a understanding of what we believe in. All right? We believe that you have more control over your retirement than you may think, than what traditional financial planning tells you about. You have control to create a great life. Yes, money and investing is important. But unlike traditional retirement planning, where it's the hub of everything, it's really just a tool amongst a lot of other tools that you have a lot more control over. We totally believe that. We believe that if you have the right little conversations and focus on making lots of little good decisions, you're going to create a great life and a great retirement. And we definitely believe you can do this. And so we noodle on all aspects of retirement, whether it's the money side, the investing side, or the personal side. We want great outcomes for you. And I bet you do too. So here's how we help. Obviously, we do this show once a week. This is episode 278. And we've never missed a week over the last 5.5 years. And on every episode, we share my stories from working directly with clients, your stories, and the collective wisdom. We have 6 Shot Saturday, which is our weekly Saturday email, which we fail to tell people about incessantly. So if you want to get a quick email with a summary of the show, links to resources we mention, and some other things that we share to help you take little baby steps, go to rogerwhitney.com and you can sign up for 6 Shot Saturday. Promise not to spam you. You get one email to give you a summary at the end of every week. We have the Rock Retirement book, which came out about a year ago. And the deal is you can go buy that on Kindle or at Barnes & Noble or anywhere else or on Amazon. But if you buy the Kindle or a digital version and you read it and you leave an honest review and email me and let me know about it, I'll send you a autographed hard copy for free. I'm giving away all the books I have. And then we also have the Rock Retirement Club. Go rockretirementclub.com, which is our online community where we have over 200 people walking a little bit of life together. And I am creating in-depth education to help educate, empower, and inspire you to rock retirement. So that's sort of the lay of the land here. But today we're continuing the series on longevity with a great interview with Andrew Scott, Professor Andrew Scott. But before we do anything, let's go have that all-important disclaimer. So the reason we have that ominous music is because this is important. Any podcast, blog you read or listen to, don't take advice from people like me that don't know you. I would not deem to give you advice. I only give advice to clients I work for as a fiduciary walking this journey into retirement. Think of this as helpful education, and before you make any decisions, talk to your legal advisor, your tax advisor, or your financial advisor, because that's just common sense. Now let's go on to our hot topic segment where we just talk about topical things and dive into the Secure Act, which just passed the House of Representatives. This is breaking news here, okay? The House of Representatives just recently passed what's called the Secure Act. This is a bill that was backed by, wait for it, Republicans and Democrats working together. No, I'm not kidding. They passed something in a bipartisan way, and now it's going to the Senate. And this is even more incredible. A bill that was put together by Democrats and Republicans in the House that passed is going to the Senate, and it may pass the Senate. There might actually be some collaboration going on in government in the form of the Secure Act. I tell you, man, miracles happen. But the reason I'm talking about the Secure Act, which is likely the most significant change since 2006 when we had the Pension Protection Act, has some things that may impact you on your journey to retirement. So here are some of the provisions in the Secure Act that will likely need to be worked out or passed in the Senate. Number one is they're looking at repealing the maximum age for traditional IRA contributions, which is 70 and a half. Right now, after 70 and a half, you can't make a traditional IRA contribution. That may go away. So if you're working longer in life or you have income, you still may be able to do that. The second provision that I think is important is that they're looking at increasing the age of the required minimum distribution for retirement accounts. So currently, when you reach 70 and a half, you need to start taking out required minimum distributions for the rest of your life based on the IRS longevity table. So currently, if you're 70 and a half, and let's say you had $1 million in an IRA, it works out to about 3.6% in year one. So about $36,000 the IRS would require you to take out and pay taxes on. And then that percentage would go up every single year as your life expectancy shrinks. Well, they're looking at extending that by a year and a half. I mean, it's not monumental, but they're acknowledging that people are living longer, and 70 and a half might be a little bit too early. Another provision is they're looking at letting long-term part-time workers participate in 401ks to help give coverage. That's a good thing. They're looking to allow parents to withdraw up to $5,000 from their retirement accounts penalty-free within a year for the birth or adoption of a new child for qualified expenses. And then they're thinking that maybe parents can withdraw up to $10,000 from a 529 plan to help repay student loans. Those are things around the edges, I think. They all help. But I do think allowing people to organize more effectively into retirement plans, especially small businesses, is good. And, increasing the required minimum distribution age is not a bad thing, I don't think. I think what is encouraging is that, hey, there's some collaboration in our government in a positive way. There is hope. There is hope. With that, I want to go to our practical planning segment in our conversation with Dr. Andrew Scott. So as we continue our series on longevity, it would be silly not to bring on my friend Andrew Scott to have another chat about this subject. So Dr. Andrew Scott is co-author of the book with Linda Granton, The 100-Year Life, which is a wonderful book that has implications for you and I, but also for our kids. So I highly recommend the book. We'll have a link to it in Six Shot Saturday. But Dr. Scott is a professor of economics at the London Business School and a fellow of All Souls at Oxford University. He's previously held posts at Harvard University, London School of Economics, and Oxford University. Dude's a smarty pants, but he's also a really nice guy and very insightful. And he and I have chatted often about longevity, and I thought I could bring him on to chat with us about a lot of the implications and how do we embrace the positive aspects of longevity, which sometimes can feel sort of negative. So let's go chat with Dr. Scott. Andrew, it's great to have you on the show again. It's been a while.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me back.
I saw that you had started the Longevity Forum. A lot of this is just coming from the 100-Year Life. And I was curious to start with, had you done research in this area prior to you and your co-writer writing that book?
That's a great question. So, it's funny because 100-Year Life is about a multi-stage life. And in many ways, that's also what I'm experiencing, because as a macroeconomist, most of my previous work has been around GDP, interest rates, monetary and fiscal policy. But I've always liked big picture. I've always liked the big trends that shape the world. And one of the fun things about being in a business school is I get a chance to talk about those. So I've always been interested in demographics and all it means. But I've also always been interested in things that go beyond the economics to the history, the philosophical. So I've always been a passionate reader and researcher in this area, but it hadn't been my main activities. And the success of the book very much has persuaded me to make this now my hardcore academic research, but also to try and have an influence policy-wise, because throughout my career I've always loved ideas, but I always think ideas have impact. And, that's what I'm about. So, it's a lot of fun. And it's a brilliant topic, longevity. I think it should almost be its own intellectual discipline. And trying to create a framework to make sense of longevity and how it offers a different perspective on so many financial and policy issues is really what I'm about.
So do you think, when you decide that, is it you planting your flag in the ground as this is the one thing that I'm going to research? I mean, I think of that in terms of what I research and work with is this transition. We call it retirement, but it's really just a different way of living.
Exactly.
A stage.
Exactly.
And I planted my flag there. Do you think this is where you're planting your flag?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, it's a pretty broad territory, so I might have to have quite a few flags. But it's certainly where, I've got my compass and where I've gone out with a sheet of paper and I want to try and make a map. Because actually, I don't think there is even a map at the moment. There's lots of very good work scattered around, but actually how you make a map of this. And you talked about the Longevity Forum, and that's part of what I'm about. But also through that, I'm also working with Laura Carstensen at Stanford on a global longevity agenda, sort of a new map of life project, Laura would call it, which I think is very exciting.
We were talking right before this. My son's graduating Texas Tech here. Your daughter is starting her life, and this has huge implications for them. But for baby boomers, which I would count you as one, It also has implications. It's not just simply younger people that have to deal with this. It's people like you and me.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point actually, because I might be good just to rewind and tell you a little bit about how I see longevity. So, one of the things I found really interesting is that we have this big discussion of an aging society and how people are getting more old people. The average society is aging. And there's a lot of negativity around that. But of course, the core fact is on average, we're living longer and we're healthier for longer. There's lots of challenges around that. Not everyone is living longer. Not everyone is living healthier for longer. And not all the years of extra life are healthy. But the fact is that we are living longer and more healthy than our previous generations. And they in turn are doing the same to generations before. And that just sounds like good news. So how do we make the most of that good news? But too often this is always thought about as end of life and aging. And for me, longevity is actually about all of life. And it's about recognizing that in the 20th century, we discover that age is malleable to a degree that we never thought possible. Whether it be through diet, whether it be through education, whether it be through exercise or medical treatments, we manage to extend life and make it healthier for longer. Now, that's pretty staggering if you're our children's age, because they realistically have to think about the prospect of a 100-year life. But even for the baby boomers, what it basically means is no matter what your age is, you've got more time ahead of you than previous generations. And so you need to be more forward-looking.
More active
and not,
time.
You don't have to be very forward-looking, but everyone has to be more forward-looking and thinking more about the future.
And so that's more active life ahead of you. The phraseology always uses that. I think of being old as being on the park bench of life rather than in the playground. We're going to have more time in the playground, it sounds like.
Exactly. I mean, most of these years of extra life have kind of been inserted, I'd say, late middle age. So it's not the first flush of youth, but certainly not the sort of the last hand of life. So, that's extraordinary. Now, how do we make the most of that? And of course, the baby boomers are situated pretty square in that segment. And so just as they sort of invented teenage years, so they're going to have to reinvent this time as well.
So they're really the trailblazers again to this longer life.
Yes, I think they are. I mean, but of course they have a different starting point from the 20-year-old. When our 20-year-olds reach 60, they'll be in a different situation from the baby boomers. So there'll certainly be some lessons to be learned. But yeah, the baby boomers are pioneers, but kind of everyone is a pioneer because everyone's got more time ahead of them than their parents' generation. And that means they've got to do things differently and think about things differently. And critically, of course, it also means you've got to invest more in your future. And that's not just financial. That's also about your skills, your relationship, and your fitness.
Yeah, we just finished a month-long series on how technology is going to change longevity and how to harness it, whether it's connectivity, mobility, your health, and it's establishing, figuring out how to harness it to.
Yeah, no, I'm working on the next book at the moment, which is combining technology and longevity. So it's something I thought a lot about. I mean, it's interesting because there's what I kind of call a Frankenstein syndrome at the moment. There's a lot of fear about technology and there's a lot of fear about longevity. We can't afford to grow old. Social Security is going bust. And the robot's going to rise up. They're going to imprison us and take our jobs, etc. But really, these are both pretty cool achievements by humans. Hey, we've made ourselves live longer and more healthy for longer. Hey, we've got this wonderful new technology. So really the question is, how do we utilize those wonderful inventions to make our life better? And I would say make it more human, actually. And that's really what we need to shift the debate towards.
And one area of longevity that I don't hear as much about is how to have a purposeful life.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, of course, the two go hand in hand because what you find from study after study is the more purposeful, engaged your life is, the longer it tends to be. So actually, I think they just go so close together. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I hear a lot of talk. One of the often criticisms I hear about longevity is where it's not just how long you live, it's how healthy you live and how well you live. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, absolutely. To me, they all go together. We've got to make sure that as many people as possible live as long as possible, as healthily as possible, and in a fulfilled way as possible. In fact, I'm coming around to the opinion now, actually, that really the main aim for governments around the world should be exactly that. We look at GDP, which is, of course, an important indicator, but there could be no better measure of how successful a government is than how many people are living long, healthy, and fulfilled lives. And that fulfillment and engagement needs to come from places other than work. I mean, I think, in the 100-Year Life book, we talk about how a three-stage life emerged in the 20th century of education, work, and retirement. And we said that as life lengthens, that three-stage life can't be stretched out. A 60-year career is not an appealing prospect if done in the way that we currently do. But I think what it really then speaks about is how you sort of create a world where work is more than what you do when you turn up and get paid for financially. I think what we're seeing with technology and longevity is that we're going to have a concept of work that perhaps we've had historically in the past before the Industrial Revolution. Well, work is where you put in time and you get a reward. It may not be financial. It could be a reward from community engagement. It could be a reward because you've learned a skill. But that's, I think, how we need to think about work. And that's a better way of thinking about fulfillment than just I clock on and I get paid.
Yeah, and I think the adjustment is the old three-stage life, too. It's like a light switch where you're a usable widget until you're not your useful life is gone and then we turn you off.
Exactly. And of course, what we are seeing is a lot of baby boomers who have been forced to retire or felt that they should retire, unretiring or trying to find ways to keep engaged. And we're seeing a lot of growth in the social sector, I think. So I was talking to Mark Freeman of Encore, and I think one of the ideas that I want to explore with him is the following. During the Industrial Revolution, you saw a lot of people move from their villages to the city, and they struggled. Socially, they struggled. Their support network had disappeared, their identity had disappeared, and there were lots of economic growth, but there were lots of social problems. And what you saw was a massive growth of charitable organizations. And what you sort of need with a social sector is two things. First of all, you need a lot of problems that need attending to. And secondly, you need a bunch of people with the time to do something about it. And a lot of those charities during the Industrial Revolution were run by women because women didn't work. Then kind of government steps in, you introduce social security, you see the growth of the labor movement, and those problems disappear, or at least are reduced. And then women start to work and those women's charities decline. I think if you look at what's happening at the moment with technology, you're seeing a lot of social problems. And you're seeing a lot of social need that governments are not able to deal with. And so you're seeing a lot of rise of charitable activities. But what you're seeing is that this coming from people who have retired and have time on their hands and want to do something purposeful. I think that's going to be a really big growth area of the next 10, 20 years.
I love that, and it's helping them see that vision for themselves. When I talk to, I'm the boots on the ground guy. I'm working with people that are dealing with these transitions. What I hear most often is it's not the absence of work that they want. It's not retirement. They just want more time freedom.
Yes,
to pursue more. It's a slower pace, and whether it's charitable pursuits and organized. We just had I have a friend that just started a 501c3, which is a charitable organization here in the States for helping dogs. But it's just creating a vision for what we could do.
Exactly. Now, and at the heart of these longer lives, it is all about time. How do we rearrange it? What do we do with it? And how do we get our return from it, as it were? And I think that's spot on. And as you say, you just don't want time hanging around. You want to use time differently in different units, different flexibility, and with a different purpose as well.
So you are a baby boomer. I'm not going to ask you your age.
I would like to say I'm 53. I'm either Gen X or a baby boomer.
You're 53?
It depends on the classification.
You're 53?
Yeah, I don't wear. Yeah.
Okay, I'm 52. Okay, so yeah, I'm right there. I'm a tweener.
Better than I.
So a lot of research says with longevity is our 50s is where you really need to hardwire foundational habits.
Yeah.
Because as our cognitive ability slowly ebbs, that's going to be our autopilot. Do you agree with that? And if so, what implications do you see, and what are the hardwired habits you're working on?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, I do agree. I guess I would slightly sort of backtrack and say, no matter what your age, you need to invest in the future. And it's never too late. But of course, the earlier you start, the better it is. With a 100-year life, child development just needs to extend. And so now I think it's going to be extended across the first 30 years of life. And that's a great thing. But of course, you will then need to keep updating yourself. And of course, you can get away with things when you're younger, physically and mentally, that makes it perhaps hard to invest in the future. But certainly when you hit your 50s, you look at the medical evidence, those are absolutely key years. But any year, it's important to invest in your physical, your mental health, and of course, your friendships and relationships. And I think also as you sort of reach that 50-year-old point, there's the sort of the happiness curve literature that says you tend to have a different perspective on life, and you start looking around in a different way. So yes, I do agree. So one of the things that I'm doing, so I had a sporting injury 25, 30 years ago that I know that if I don't do something about, I'm going to really struggle later life. So I'm spending a lot of time trying to sort that out. And man, it takes a lot of time. But actually, I know it's going to be really, really important. So that's one key thing. And then I guess, you do start thinking differently at this age. So I'm looking to invest in new friends, not because I'm bored with the previous ones, but I just think I've got to make sure I keep exposing myself to new ideas because there's still a lot of growth and change to come from me. And I need to do a bit of exploration to find out what route that is.
Yeah, I'll be your friend, Andrew.
We are talking quite a lot, so that's good.
And I think having new friends, and I've been intentional about this. I have a good friend, Dan Miller, who is 71 now. And
yes,
he went to Cuba with myself and 3 or 4 other people. And we had 5 generations of the men that went. And he is one of the most successful people I know that is building robust networks downwards. And he's the most curious mind I've ever seen, other than you. I want to ask you this, because I say something based off of our first conversation, based on your book, is, people poo-poo, like my son's 23, graduating college, the 20-somethings for living at home a little longer, not getting married, not having kids. And one thing I got from our discussion, and I'm going to say how I interpreted it, and I want your thought on it, is I came away from our discussion much more encouraged about the 20-somethings because, like you said, their development is longer. It's not that they're not mature. Yeah. They are just, and maybe intuitively they realize they have such a long timeline to build a life. It's more multi-stages, whereas you and I, when we came out of college, we felt like we were on this rail to get moving. And ultimately, when they become more like we were in their own version in their 30s, they're going to bring so much more life perspective and experience than we brought to the world when we were 23 getting a job.
I think that's spot on. And I think, it was really interesting. I can't remember the precise nature of our conversation last time, but in writing the book, about halfway through, I had a conversation with my middle child, Lily, who was 21 and just graduating from university, from a good university and a good degree. But he said, Dad, I'm going to take a few years out. And, man, I was cross. I was surprised I was cross. I was trying to work it out. And, I realized there were sort of 3 reasons. The first was, I was actually just jealous because I didn't do that.
Yeah.
At 21, I was working as an economist for an investment bank. And I look back and think, what a waste of time that was. Am I in any way either financially, spiritually, or physically better off from working as an economist in a bank when I was 21? And the answer is no. So you think, why not do it? Secondly, I was jealous because I paid for him to get through school, and now he was going on a long holiday, and I'd kind of gone without holiday. So I was jealous. I was cross. But I was also worried because when I graduated, if you didn't sort of jump into a job, you'd have problems finding a job a year or 2 later. You fell out of lockstep. And firms would say, well, why didn't you get a job? Was there something wrong with you?
Are you defective? Yeah. Are you defective?
Yeah, exactly. Are you subversive? Are you defective? And he said, no, it's not like that anymore, Dad. And I said, yeah, it is, Louis. Believe me, I'm a professor at a business school. I know what I'm talking about. Of course, I don't know what I'm talking about because 3 years later, he got a job working for a consulting firm on their graduate training program. I said, but you must be one of the oldest, Louis. He said, no, I'm one of the youngest. We go from 25 to 32. But that's really interesting. And, if you think about what's happening, and again, I may have said this before, but I got a picture of my father aged 14. He was born in 1925, my father. And at 14, he's wearing a suit and tie. He's got a job. He's paying rent. He's married at 17. He's got a kid at 18 and a house at 19. Whoa, that's commitments. And I kind of did that mid-25, mid-20s, and my kids, I'd probably early to mid-30s, I suspect. But kind of, why wouldn't you? Because going back to that point, if you've got more time ahead of you, one of the things that become much more important is options. Just keeping options open. If you buy a financial option, it depends on 2 things. The underlying volatility of the asset that the option's backed off. And the second thing is the horizon over which, the window over which you hold the option. So as life gets longer, options become more important. You do not want to close down options. So whereas my father might think my kids were not committing, I think they're just investing in options. And then, going back to what is the point of these longer lives? Well, I think what you can do now in your 20s, hopefully, is just find out a little bit more about yourself, what you like, what you're good at. And that's a great basis for a career. Whereas if you leap into a career at 16, 18 or 21, you don't know yourself and you may well become the job, which perhaps isn't the greatest thing for human happiness. So yes, I think there's a real interesting opportunity now for the people in their 20s. It's risky because, they're doing something different, but it may be a real chance to invest in themselves rather than a job, a house.
And possibly prevent what we see in our generation and baby boomer generations are people that are extremely competent in their work, paid extremely well, and they hate it because they followed a path.
Absolutely. And of course, if you then have to reinvent yourself in your 40s or 50s, we call that a midlife crisis. Although I'm not sure that's a fair comment, but no, exactly. And I think one of the challenges with a 3-stage life, it does tie your identity very strongly to your job. Again, going back to my father, when he retired, if you were to say to him, what did you do? He'd say, well, I worked in newspapers. And I don't think our kids will say that. And who knows, perhaps we won't even say something like that. Our identity will be based over many stages, and there will be a thread that links them together. But you won't just say, I did X. And that probably is a good thing. Well, certainly a great possibility of how to use these longer lives.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. One last thought on this whole thing, for me anyway, is to flip around those reasons that your son gave to now, if you're in your mid-50s or early 60s, of realizing, in some ways we're institutionalized where we don't even realize the optionality we might have.
No. So Mark Freeman of Encore says it's not really a midlife crisis, it's a midlife chasm, because what we haven't got are the social norms and institutions to help us make transitions in our mid-40s and early 50s, where, we may well have 20, 30, 40 years of working or active life ahead of us. And so you will need to make those transitions, but we're kind of not encouraged to do it. And if we try and do it, what are the support networks to help us through it? And I think that's a very active space where you can see all sorts of experimentation occurring, but is much, much needed. The teenage years are a time when you shed your identity as a child and start to develop one as an adult. But perhaps in our 40s and 50s, with these extra years of life that have been inserted, we have to do a similar thing again. And that's not a midlife crisis.
No, it's just understanding the options are there and reworking those muscles of creating a vision for what your life can be, especially because we have, whether it's part-time work, there's so many more options than you and I had coming out. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to growing older with you, Andrew.
Fantastic. Well, and always a pleasure to talk to you.
You too, man. Hey, welcome to the Happy Lab, where we learn how to live a happier life. And by overwhelming request in the Happy Lab today, I'm going to tell a quick story about something that happened to me a few weeks ago. So, Nicole, I know your kids, because I sent you a photo of this, have been asking. So
yes, my kids are the people that are, demanding to know this story.
So I was riding my bicycle in preparation for my trip where I'm at now in Colorado, and I'm probably 18 miles in on my ride, and I ride country roads, and I'm going about 20 miles an hour, and I look down at my bike computer. In my mind, it was just for a second. And I look up, and lo and behold, there are 3 sizable trash containers directly in front of me, like within 2 feet. And so I hit them. And I think they were full of bricks.
Oh no.
I don't know what they were full. They felt like they were full of bricks. So
did you hit them with your bike or with your body or both?
Well, I think bike first and then body followed. So my front wheel pancaked is what they call it, where it basically bends in half from the impact. I go flying over the bike, over the garbage cans, roll on my side. I recall seeing my bike fly across the road, and then I'm laying there, mentally checking. And it's amazing to me how...
Did your watch ask you if you'd fallen?
No, wait, that's actually a great question. But it's amazing how when you fall, you ever have that feeling it's like the reaction is get up as quick as possible. It's a weird reaction. It's always, okay, get up. And then you're sort of doing a mental check. And I actually had the thing that hurts the most is my hand and my pinky. Because I think I put my hand down as I was falling and it hyperextended my pinky out. And then, I have a bruise on my hip from it. And my bike was toast. So this is my previous bike, because I literally that week I had a new bike coming Saturday. This happened on a Tuesday. And I think my older bike is that's not old. It's a great bike, but it's just not meant for me anymore. It's a Cervelo. And I texted my wife and I said, I think my Cervelo's mad that I'm breaking up with her.
She went out with a bang.
veered me into garbage cans. But your question on the Apple Watch is a good question, because we just talked about recently how that's one of my favorite technologies right now. Is I fell and it started buzzing and it said, SOS, are you okay? And if I had not hit it, it would have, I forget how I have it programmed. I should check that. It would have either texted my wife with a location or call or text, I don't know how it works, 911, telling them my location and I had fallen. And so I hit, don't do it.
You should probably confirm what it's going to do.
Well, I had it set up.
You don't want like an ambulance to show up for your sprained pinky.
But, if I had not hit the thing, say, no,
that's true.
I'm cool. And then it asked like, well, did you really fall and you're okay? Or did you not fall? Because it's trying to learn whether that was a fall, because it has some technology inside it that notices that. So that's cool. And then from there, I called my wife from my watch because I don't carry a phone. And I said what were the first words that a husband should say when he's calling about something like that? I'm okay. Because she knows.
Wait, so does she know? Like, did she get an alert that you fell?
No, but she knew I was riding my bike.
Oh,
and
okay.
In fact, she was on the phone with her mom and she's like, Mom, Roger's riding his bike and he's calling me. I got to go. So she knows. She gets a little anxious about that. So she came and picked me up. So that it told the kids that these garbage cans jumped out in front of me.
You're like a PSA for don't text and ride.
I just looked at my bike computer really
Don't
quickly.
look at your distractions, digital distractions.
Yeah, and also constant vigilance. I mean, I had been riding for not near an hour, and I've ridden this route all the time. It's momentary lapses. So how does this relate to a Happy Lab story? Good question. I actually had a very good attitude about it. The first thing, as I was sitting there for 15 minutes or so, lifting the garbage cans back up, moving my bike, checking myself, I was actually really thankful. I felt really good. I was like, wow, thank goodness it was this and not a car that was distracted. Thank goodness that it's just my pinky that hurts and a little strawberry on my knee.
Well, and it's awesome that you had the watch and that you were able to all of that is awesome. My
attitude about it was, well, I'm thankful for how this worked out rather than I chose my reaction well. I guess that's the point. And that's a lot about how you make lemonade out of lemons.
On your marks, get set.
And we're off to set a 7-day baby step to rock retirement. We're going to get shorten that. We did it. We're going to have to shorten that. So in the next 7 days, what I want you to do is be alert. Have your radar up for something that goes wrong and see if you can choose your reaction to it. So you can make lemonade out of some lemons that are going to be thrown at you over the next 7 days. That's a great habit to cultivate, and this is a good first step. Holy cow, Nicole. I can't believe how many people are putting their name in the hat to be our subject. That's my mad scientist voice, by the way. Laugh.
I like it. It's good.
Like for Retirement Plan Live. If you still want to put your name in, we will have a link in our 6 Shot Saturday email, which you can sign up for at rogerwhitney.com. And Nicole, remind me what we're looking for, or remind them. I know. We are looking for someone with an unexpected retirement altering life event in the last 5 years. So that's pretty open to interpretation. It could mean a job change, a divorce, a health event, a big financial loss. It could be something big that financial just gain. You win the lottery. Good point. Actually, that's a good point. It can be a positive. It's just a big change that sort of all of a sudden you had to take that left at Albuquerque and you didn't realize it was coming up. So if you think that you might fit that, make sure you're signed up for 6 Shot Saturday and click on the link, and then we're having conversations so we can find someone for Retirement Plan Live coming up in September. All right, I'm going to hit the trails. Bye, Nicole. Bye. Bye, everybody.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Retirement Answer Man. Be sure to visit rogerwhitney.com/answers to access the Retirement Answer Library with over 30 checklists to help you make the most of the only life you have. Remember, you have more power than you realize to create an amazing life starting today with Retirement Answer Man. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Have a wonderful day.